Friends, I really was content to leave all of my analysis and critique of Brangelina in the Brangelina video that I just posted not too long ago. But I noticed right after that video went up, I started seeing headlines about Brad Pitt supposedly claiming that he is no longer sober. And I thought, well, wait, what is this? What is this PR push that he's doing now? I mean, I told you guys in that video that both he and Angelina are very comfortable with using their PR strategists to accomplish whatever it is that they're looking to accomplish, which is often establishing an image for them that the public will find palatable. But then I went searching and I found this huge article, this interview that Brad Pitt gave to Esquire magazine. And it's not short either. This is a long interview. The article itself on the website says that it'll take 22 minutes for you to read it. So I thought, well, geez, Brad, here you are with your expose all about your poor, suffering existence. And I guess I'll go ahead and give you the attention that you wanted because I'm going to roast him today. But before I start, hi, my name is Antoinette Chanel. I like to give commentary on how celebrities, influencers, influential people like to act and use media. I'm also a former professor of English and communication, so that's why I like to delve in on topics like these. Welcome or welcome back if this ain't your first rodeo. All right, I'm not going to read this entire article. I'll put a link in the description of this video so that you can go and check it out yourself. It is from Esquire, and so part of me wonders if this will be shielded by a paywall at some point soon, but I was able to get in there without ever having subscribed to Esquire or paying them any money. So hopefully that's the case for you too. But if we find that they do paywall it, I went ahead and PDF'd it, so I've still got a copy. Okay, so the writer of this article, or the person who conducted this interview, is Ryan DeAugustino, and I do want to say that Ryan, your writing style is very solid. I enjoyed reading your words, even though they were about a subject that I couldn't care less about. The dogs are trying to escape, shoving their noses through his knees and climbing all over each other, attempting to paw their way out of the glass door. He's got it open just a few inches and is trying to calm them. The whole entryway is solid glass, a tall plate glass door flanked by tall plate glass windows or walls, so the whole scene is visible. Him gently motioning for the dogs to sit, his mouth moving as he shushes them scampering around at his feet. Then he hollers across the driveway through the crack in the door, "You'll get mildly molested for a couple of minutes, then they'll leave you alone." Okay, so Ryan is setting the scene for us that clearly Brad Pitt is living well. He's Brad frickin' Pitt. I don't know what else we would expect, but he's in this nice home in the Hollywood Hills somewhere, glass doors, and apparently he's got dogs now. What really stood out to me most in this opening section is that men feel so comfortable just casually using the language of abuse to describe things. After this, Ryan gives us a description of what Brad's wearing and just setting the scene for this Hollywood A-lister that he's about to sit down and have this conversation with. And Brad introduces himself by saying, "Hey, Brad." As he says this, he cocks his head back just a click and his famous golden hair sways, and he smiles his smile, the one that makes you wonder what he's discovered about the world that you haven't. Okay, so then the article goes on to explain that he has this giant kitchen island in his kitchen. And another piece that I highlighted was this part that says, "He awoke this morning on his own time, no alarm. What time?" He laughs, a quick aha laugh. "Well, see, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's such a luxury," he says. I am just very taken by the tone deaf nature of the way that this interview is starting, because there is definitely no skimping on describing the opulence and decadence of Brad Pitt and his life, as if we needed more reminders of that. At one point, Brad even claims to the interviewer that he cleaned, which he then explains means that he moved some shit around. And again, it just sounds so like out of touch and tone deaf to me. Further into this interview, Ryan writes, he's in a new movie, which of course is what he's had me over here to talk about. The movie, though, turns out to be about something real to him. It turns out to be about resilience in the face of desperation and grabbing at shreds of hope. And when we get into that territory, this meeting this afternoon turns into something unexpected, rare even. I didn't see it coming. Again, Ryan, really great writing, because you are making us hold on for whatever this nugget is that you are burying in this insanely long interview that you did. But we also get a glimpse into what the message is, what the purpose is behind this piece of media that we are consuming. Obviously, Brad has seen all these headlines and he wants y'all to know that, hey, he's a victim too. Why else would he have to lean on such resilience at this time in his life? He is setting up the idea that he has just been taking lashings and they've been undeserved. Brad goes on to say, God, I want my 50s back, he says, locking in on me for a second. I would do more. Your 50s are just, man, anything that's on your mind, go attack it. Go attack it now. Oh, okay, sure. I guess he would do more with his 50s. It's interesting that he would make a comment like that about his 50s, because that would have been like his ages of being 50 to 59 were entirely engulfed in either the relationship with Angelina and his kids or controversy related to Angelina and his kids. Right? Because, I mean, he's 62 now, so he would have turned 50 12 years ago. 12 years ago was 2014. Angie and Brad, didn't they marry in 2014? So my point in saying this is that once again, Brad Pitt is putting suggestive, strategic quotes out into the media that he knows will land in a certain way with certain people. So for him to make a statement like this doesn't seem unlike the quote that he gave about how he made the smartest decision in choosing Angelina to be the mother of his kids, saying that after getting divorced from Jen. Later in block text, it explains, in every role Pitt takes at age 62, he wants to do something he's never done before as an actor, even some small thing, even in just one scene. Again, this all comes across as very tone deaf to me, because Brad Pitt has been an A-list celebrity for at least 3 decades now. If you haven't done everything that you wanted to do in film, it's because you didn't want to, sir, not because you didn't have the opportunity. Like, I just really hate the suggestion that he's trying to make here, as if he is one of us, that he's like this relatable person that the common man can see themselves in. It's preposterous to me, but trust and believe, this is successful with lots of people, lots of men and lots of women. Okay, so this part was also very interesting to me because well, I would actually love to hear from some people in the comments. I personally am not somebody who has ever struggled with addiction before, but if you are someone who has struggled with addiction, I would love to hear your thoughts on this next sort of portion of the interview, because Brad makes some statements about sobriety that I found interesting. But in this next portion, Ryan writes, we pulled down the little Perriers pretty quick. They were drinking sparkling water together. And I point out that he offered me wine earlier. At an award ceremony in 2020, he thanked his friend Bradley Cooper for helping him get sober and talked more deeply about his sobriety on Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert, last June. I asked him if the wine is something for guests. No, I was sober for 7 years and then I got off the wagon. Little laugh. He raises his famous opposing diacritic eyebrows and holds a finger up in a more restrained manner. I got overconfident a couple times. Went, yep, Nope, no good for me, not in big quantities. To which Ryan asks him, you can have a glass of wine? To which Brad says, yeah, well, I can have a few, but I can't have a lot. I have to be professional about it. So the reason why I wanted to point out this quote in particular is because I noticed that when he says, I can have a few is not quantitative. So he's not specifying I can have 3, I can have 5, I can have 2. A few is whatever Brad Pitt decides in that moment. And then he follows this up with saying, but I can't have a lot. Again, a lot is not quantitative. So a lot is whatever Brad Pitt thinks it is in that moment. And I'm just curious about the people who have been to AA, the people who have been to NA. Is that how recovery goes? Because everyone I've known who has ever been addicted to a substance, they were not as brazen about like how nonchalant they could be. Most of them were like, no, I don't drink anymore because I am an alcoholic. Even after stopping drinking, they consider themselves to be alcoholics. So I would just really love to hear from some people who have firsthand experience at that, because my eyebrows were raised. Ryan explains that the World Cup game was on and it was Paraguay against somebody. I don't remember. Sorry, y'all. It's in the article though. But this section is when they're both looking at the television screen, seeing the World Cup game playing. Brad says, I'm going to start a class for flopping because these guys are terrible, he says. He stands and pretends to fall. His hands go limp on his wrists. His feet stumble. He grimaces in exaggerated fake pain. It's some of the worst acting I've ever seen. I know drawing a foul is part of the gamemanship, but man, they need a lot of help. I guess I was just mostly taken by that because it's funny to me that even when he's supposed to be like having this casual interview, he's still being an actor. Don't forget that these people are actors. These celebrities, most of them are actors, okay, above anything else. So portraying something that they think that you will like is their number one goal. Brad Pitt gives details about this new movie that he's gonna be in, Beast something, but I don't really care about that. I'm not trying to promote nothing that Brad Pitt's doing. But then further down in the interview is when he starts to get a little bit more personal. So Ryan DeAgostino apparently has a tattoo and Brad Pitt asks about it, and it leads to this very interesting exchange where Brad Pitt starts talking about loss. So he says, what's that ink? He's leaning forward, looking at the tattoo on my left forearm. That's good, he says. I guess of the craftsmanship. I like that. That, I rub a finger over it. That's my brother, his initials, in nautical flags. He died a few years ago. He sits back in his chair. Oh man. Mike. Freak heart attack, 46, he loved sailing so. Ryan, rest in peace to your brother. That's beautiful, Brad Pitt says. Thank you. And really well done. How long ago, can I ask? Yeah, it's been about 5 years, a little more. Immediately he says, oh, you're just getting to the point where you can swallow it. Oh, like he felt it, like a man who has known loss. Quite suddenly, that's what Pitt is, a man who has known loss. Quite suddenly, that's all he is, a movie star in the way I'm a writer and my brother-in-law Joe is a sound engineer and your plumber is a plumber. He looks back up at me and says, I think grief is probably the most leveling of all emotions. He holds the edge of the table with his fingers and shakes his head back and forth a millimeter, a flinch so fast you couldn't see, you could miss it, sorry. That's an understatement even. Loss is certainly the most profound thing a human can endure, and loneliness that can ensue is the greatest torture. It's the voice he used to say, attack your 50s, but less urgent, offered not as advice, but shibboleth. Pitt looks at the TV through the game, though the game doesn't seem to register with him at this moment, and out the windows at the gloom, and then back into my eyes. Man, you're on year 5, he says, shaking his head slowly now and still holding on to the edge of the table as if for ballast. Year 5, you just start breathing again. Okay, so then we get into this whole exchange about how Brad Pitt has processed through his loss, and every year has been, you know, this new challenge for it. So like the first year it was like it wasn't even real. I think he says that for like the first few years it's not even real. Then you start getting to a point where you're sort of struggling with it. You might feel anger, you might lash out, you might be in denial, all of those stages of grief. And then he starts talking to the interviewer as if he's like this expert on grieving and grief. And I just hate the audacity of it. Like, why does Brad Pitt have to be the authority on all things? Why can't he just give this interview? He starts off like he's this common man, like he's relatable and he's just like the people reading. But then he makes a statement like that. And I just think that that is the dumbest, most tone deaf thing ever, especially because later on we read that his father is residing in Missouri and that he's about to go and visit him by himself. And it's like one of the first visits that he's had in a while out to see his dad. And it's like, Brad, why is your dad in Missouri, dude? Why isn't your dad out in Los Angeles with you? If you love and cherish him so much, you would miss him if he was gone. Why isn't he in LA with you? And now don't get me wrong. I'm one of the first people to tell you that you don't want family being too close. You know, what is that saying that both fish and family start to really stink after 5 days or something like that? I don't remember what the quote is, but I'm sure you guys have heard it before. But the bottom line is I hear him saying these things in this interview, but then later on it's followed up with additional information that just doesn't seem in line with the things that he's claiming right now. And also, I want to state that there's been no mention of his children or the fact that he has an ex-wife. The interviewer has talked about those things, but Brad Pitt himself doesn't mention them anywhere in this interview. Another point that Brad makes is he talks about the point where he became I don't know if I can say the word, but he wanted to harm himself. And he talks about what that felt like, how he had never had that ideation beforehand, but then suddenly he was faced with it. And I'm not going to drag him for that necessarily, but I do think that in the same way that I told you that Angelina Jolie benefits from being affiliated with certain causes, with certain charities, with certain actions, I think that Brad Pitt also is benefiting from the sympathy that the public is going to give him over knowing that he had this feeling, that he had these ideas of harming himself. And I think that that is definitely not an accident. Right now, after we've gotten all these back-to-back-to-back headlines about his children dropping his surname, I think him coming out to say that he has had ideation about harming himself is a way of him being like, oh, don't hate me, please, people. I'm not a bad guy. And so, I mean, while I do take that... it's hard to pull up my sleeve. I have a semicolon tattoo on my bicep. While I do take those types of claims and that type of ideation very seriously, I don't think that Brad Pitt was nearly as deep into that as what he's claiming. I think it's just very convenient right now to get to claim something like that because then you look like a sympathetic character to the public. And the rest of this is pretty much just him name dropping, talking about all of his famous friends in the biz, the Hollywood A-listers that he's worked with before, and how he's tried to emulate their work and whatnot. And I mean, you can argue all day if you want to about whether or not Brad Pitt is part of the A-list. I don't really think it's up to us. I think that that was decided years ago when the public at that point in like the 80s and 90s decided to gravitate towards him and glom onto him and dub him as one of the most handsome people to have ever lived. But I really just wanted to go through some parts of this interview and article to show you that once again, the PR game is being played. It's being played with people's emotions. It's being played with the mention of some very serious things. I think that coming out to say that you've broken your sobriety and that it's something that you're okay with and almost borderline proud of, while also being accused of having physical altercations with your ex-wife and your children, I don't think that's a good look personally, but I do think that that is a popular dude bro approach. Lots of men and women who are in full support of the patriarchy love to give excuses to men who have addiction, who break their sobriety or break whatever their journey was in getting away from it. They like to reward that like, oh yeah, let him be a human. It's okay to be imperfect, not a big deal. And yes, it is okay to be imperfect. It is okay to, make mistakes. But I think that in speaking to the public about something as serious as alcohol addiction, acting like it's something that you can just decide that you're going to change your approach about and I can have a few, just not a lot, I think that that is a very risky message to put out to the public. I have known people personally who struggled with alcohol addiction, and if you were to tell that person, yeah, you can have a couple of them, well, that person's gonna go jump headfirst into a gallon jug of wine, and that's just their first drink of choice for the day. I'm also really not here for this whole like Brad Pitt has experienced loss. I mean, yeah, that part's true, but if the loss that you are experiencing is really as deeply damaging as you are claiming, then I would see you out here trying to make amends with the very people who you are claiming to have lost. Do we see Brad Pitt making any public apologies to his kids? Do we see him putting out any statements about how he supports his kids and their autonomy in whatever it is that they choose to do, because that's his role as a father? I would be more inclined to jump onto this sympathetic Brad bandwagon if I could at least see that, but he hasn't even done that. Instead, in this interview, he's being petty, just like the Brad Pitt that we know him to be, and putting out quotes about what he would have done in his 50s and how he would have made more of that and what loss really feels like and what year 5 truly looks like he's some sort of a guru or expert. No, you really could have kept that, Brad. Not to mention all of the gaudy pictures that went along with this. I guess he wants to look like, I don't know, captain of the old guy team. I don't really know, but this whole thing, I thought that it was unnecessary, but clearly this was a push for Brad's PR rehabilitation, just like a celebrity would do. And so none of it's really surprising to me. And I just want to end on the same message that I ended the Brangelina video with, which is that I hope that the children know that they don't owe us anything. They can live their lives however they want to. And I hope that they recognize that they don't necessarily owe anything to Brad either if this is how he's going to act. I mean, I'm not in that relationship. I don't know the intricacies, but if he's really, truly the asshole that I believe he is, just based off of these actions, then y'all don't know him shit either. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more from me, consider hitting that subscribe button so you can see all my playlists and get notified every time I upload to this channel. If you want to keep up with behind the scenes lifestyle stuff, you can follow me on Threads. Take care.